Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take a stack of sources, could be articles, notes, research, and we really dig in to pull out the key insights specifically for you. Today, we're looking at a batch of news snippets from CoinMarketCap. They're all dated June 9th, 2025. And our mission really is just to make sense of these headlines, what's actually been happening in crypto based only on this material you've given us. We're hunting for those aha moments.
Yeah, and looking through these, it's pretty diverse stuff. You've got technical blockchain shifts, some hints about big money moves,
Right.
even potential government interest, and tweaks to financial products. It's a real mix.
It really is. We pulled out some interesting threads, like a major blockchain transition, those big player hints you mentioned, maybe some government focus, and yeah, even a cautionary tale about trading. Okay, so let's unpack this. Where should we start?
Well, the first headline seems like a good place.
The Kaia one.
Okay.
Kaia v2.0.1 launch marks KLAY to Kaia transition. That sounds significant, not just a patch. What's that usually mean?
Well, it strongly suggests a specific blockchain, we can guess it's Clayton from the KLAY ticker, is making a really big change, going from KLAY to Kaia and calling it a v2.0.1 launch.
Yeah, that version number.
Exactly. It points towards maybe a major upgrade, could be architectural changes, maybe even a full rebrand or a strategic shift for the whole network.
So not just tweaking around the edges. This is fundamental.
Seems like it. And it kind of fits the bigger picture in crypto, right? Projects are always evolving. They have to update, improve, sometimes pivot completely to stay competitive or secure. This looks like one of those moments for Clayton or whatever the underlying chain is.
Okay, so a core change happening there. Now moving on, there were hints about, let's say, bigger players or market sentiment in these sources. Like this one. Saylor signals Bitcoin buy with tracker tease.
Ah, right. Michael Saylor. The thing is, his posts, especially about his Bitcoin tracker, have historically, come just before MicroStrategy announces another big Bitcoin purchase.
MicroStrategy being, well, a huge corporate holder of Bitcoin.
One of the largest, yeah. So when he teases that tracker, people in the market tend to read it as a signal, a heads up that another buy might be coming.
Interesting. So it's like a known pattern now.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It's become a watch signal for their accumulation strategy.
Okay, and then scaling up even more, there's this headline about potential government action. U.S. representative introduces bill for strategic Bitcoin reserve. What can we take from that?
Well, the source mentions Representative Burchett specifically. Introducing a bill like this for a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve is a formal legislative step. The source itself frames it as signaling expanding government interest in cryptocurrency.
Expanding interest. So not necessarily full adoption or anything concrete yet, but it's being formally discussed.
Exactly. It means the idea of integrating Bitcoin into, say, national strategy is moving into official government channels, at least according to this specific source. It's a step beyond just talk.
Shows it's on the radar at that level.
Definitely a shift from maybe a few years ago.
And then kind of related to market infrastructure, there's MEXC unveils new Launchpad featuring BTC.
Right. This one's more about the exchange side of things. MEXC is a major global exchange. When they launch something new, like this Launchpad for a BTC trading month, it kind of shows where they see activity and demand.
So focusing on Bitcoin still.
Yeah. It suggests, based on this snippet, that Bitcoin trading remains a central pillar for these big platforms, despite all the noise around other coins.
Okay, got it. Bitcoin's still core for the exchanges.
Seems that way from this piece of news.
All right, now let's zoom in. There was a really specific detail in the sources about a large crypto movement. Crypto whale moves 10,780 ETH from Lido to OKX. It's very precise.
Yeah, that one's interesting. It gives you a direct look at a whale, a large holder in action, moving exactly 10,708 Ether. The source even puts a value on it, $26.96 million.
Wow.
And the key part is the movement. It went from Lido,
Which is for staking, right? Burning yield.
Exactly, a major liquid staking platform, and it moved to OKX, which is a big exchange.
So pulling it out of a yield-generating spot and putting it onto an exchange, what does that usually suggest? Preparation to sell, maybe? Or trade?
It definitely raises those possibilities. Moving that kind of sum off Lido onto OKX strongly implies they're getting ready to do something with it. Could be selling, could be swapping for other assets, maybe using it for futures or derivatives on the exchange.
So less passive, more active intent.
That's the likely implication, yeah. Capital getting ready to move in the market. It's a snapshot of that preparation.
Fascinating to see those specific numbers. Okay, shifting gears a bit now, the sources also touched on the more regulated, formal side of crypto finance. Nasdaq files SEC Form 8K to expand crypto ETF benchmark.
Right. This is where crypto meets traditional finance and regulation. Nasdaq, obviously a huge exchange operator, filed this Form 8K with the SEC.
An 8K, that's like a required update for public companies.
Exactly. For significant events. And this filing, dated June 2nd, according to the source, is about changing the benchmark index for an existing crypto ETF. The hashtag Nasdaq Crypto Index US ETF, ticker NCIQ.
Okay. Changing the benchmark index. That sounds technical. What's the actual impact of that? Why does it matter?
Well, it might sound technical, but it's actually quite fundamental for an ETF. The benchmark is what the fund tries to track. Changing it means the ETF's holdings or strategy might change, affecting its performance.
Ah, so it changes what you're actually invested in, potentially.
Potentially, yes. Or how its performance is measured against the market. It could reflect a decision about which crypto assets are most important, or maybe a way to refine the product. It shows that even these regulated crypto investment vehicles are still being adjusted, still evolving as the market matures.
So the space is still figuring things out, even in the regulated corners.
It seems so, based on this filing mentioned in the source.
Okay. And then finally, kind of tucked away in these snippets, was a very different kind of story. More human scale. James struggles to profit despite 40x BTC leverage.
Yeah, the James story. It's a stark contrast, isn't it? It gives a very concrete individual example of the risks in trading. The source says he used 40x leverage on a Bitcoin long.
40 times.
Yeah, lost money, then tried shorting, still couldn't make it work.
And the source itself draws a conclusion, doesn't it? Something like high leverage, low returns.
It does. It explicitly makes that point. It really feels like a cautionary tale sitting there amongst the other news. A reminder that using that much leverage is incredibly risky. It magnifies everything gains and losses.
Highlights the volatility for the individual trader.
Absolutely. Shows that high-stakes reality, regardless of, trying to long or short, as in this specific example.
Wow. Okay, so just looking back at this stack from June 9th, it's quite a range. We've gone from deep tech changes in a blockchain like KLAY to Kaia to these signals from huge players like Sailor, potential government interest with that bill.
Right.
That specific $27 million ETH whale move, adjustments in regulated ETFs, and then down to this really personal story of trading struggles.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? When you put these seemingly separate pieces together, you get a sense of just how broad and dynamic the crypto world is on any given day. You've got protocol-level stuff, TradFi getting involved, government looking at it, massive individual transactions, and the human element of risk.
Yeah, it helps you see the different layers all moving at once.
Exactly. And hopefully helps you stay informed without feeling completely overwhelmed by the noise.
Which is precisely the goal here with this deep dive, getting you those key insights quickly, straight from the material provided.
Looking at all this raises kind of an interesting final thought, based just on what we saw today. Consider the contrast here. On one hand, you have these very formal, structured things happening. Nasdaq filing with the SEC, a U.S. lawmaker proposing a strategic reserve bill.
Right, the institutional regulated side.
Yeah. And on the other hand, you have the story of James, representing that highly speculative, incredibly volatile world of individual leveraged trading. What does that spectrum, that duality of activity happening all at once, tell you about where crypto is right now and maybe where it's heading?
That's definitely something to chew on. A great point to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into today's sources.